everyone. Welcome on. We're just allowing a few seconds for people to get on board and, checking in and all that good stuff. I do want to double check. Can y'all see, or maybe the other panelists can help me out. Can y'all see the Girls in Tech slide right now?
I cannot.
I don't see it.
Okay, no worries. There we go. I think that changed something. Wonderful.
Got it.
Great. Well, yeah, again, thank you all so much for joining us. We love having Breaking the Glass events. We love being able to co-host them with other partners as well. Before we get started, like I said earlier, thank you to Girls in Tech for welcoming Breaking the Glass into your community. We've enjoyed working with y'all so far and being able to reach your members, and we're grateful for this opportunity to connect you with some of our speakers to provide insights on career paths and hopefully provide some inspiration and some great advice. Before we get started, I'd like to take a moment to introduce myself. My name is Elizabeth Lamb. I'm the Partnerships Manager for Breaking the Glass. We partner with tech companies and nonprofits to provide free personalized programming on diversity inclusion and women's career development topics. We have provided webinars for our partners like Charles Schwab, IBM, Charter, and I know we have a lot of Dell folks on this call as well. I know we've worked with y'all in the Women in Action group before, so always a pleasure to see so many of y'all logged on. If you have any questions about wanting to get involved, I'll be able to provide my contact information in the chat as well. So we're so excited for today's discussion to begin. I'd quickly like to thank Alana from Girls in Tech for supporting this webinar. And I'm so excited for you to meet our speakers. They'll be sharing their best tips on defining and discovering your career path. But before I pass the mic over to Alana, I do want to remind everyone that if you have a question, be sure to type it into the Q&A box at the bottom of the screen, as opposed to the chat on the side. That's for resources. Questions go in the Q&A box. And pretty much our agenda is going to run. Dana will provide her talk, and then we'll go into a Q&A specific on her presentation. Then we'll do the same for Brandi, and then a Q&A with her, and then we'll open it back up to an open floor, and then close this out, and it will be a really great hour. So I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Alana.
Thank you so much. We are so excited to host Breaking the Glass today. So again, this is really a great event. It's hosted by both Dell's Pillar of Women in Tech, which is part of the Women in Action Employee Resource Group. And the way that we got to get involved with Breaking the Glass is also through Girls in Tech. So I am co-director of this outside of Dell. This is a non-Dell organization, Girls in Tech. And I just wanted to spread some information. If people are interested, we are going to have similar events with Breaking the Glass. Some will be co-hosted by Dell and Girls in Tech, and some will be just one or the other. So just if you're interested and you aren't as familiar, Girls in Tech is a global nonprofit founded in 2007. I'm the co-director for the Austin chapter, and we have thousands of members all around the world. And essentially, we are really, really excited to be bringing events like this, career panels, et cetera, to our roadmap for 2021. So again, thank you so much, everyone who's joining from Women in Tech, from Dell, and any of those who have joined because they heard about it from Girls in Tech. So thank you again so much, everyone, for joining the call, and I'm really excited to hear our panelists today.
Perfect. All right. Dana, take it away.
Everyone, thank you so much, Elizabeth. Thank you, Alana, and thank you to all of you for joining today. My name is Dana Wen, and I'm a Java software engineer and coding instructor. I have been working in the tech industry for about 15 years, and currently I work as a contract Java engineer for our project with the federal government. I'm also an instructor for Austin Coding Academy, and I have taught classes in Java programming and also in career skills for people who are looking to transition into a career in the tech industry. So looking back through my career, the one big thread that kind of connects all of my experiences is this desire to use my skills to have a positive impact on the world. So I found that programming and technology has really allowed me to do that. I started out as a student in college doing some research in accessible technology for students who are blind, and just really loved seeing the impact with that. My first job was an internship at Zillow back in the early days when it was really revolutionizing the real estate industry, which was another exciting place to be. And my last full-time role was at a company called Clean Power Research, where I got to see how software could impact the renewable energy industry. So it's been really fun and really rewarding to see the different types of impact that tech and the work that I've done has on the world throughout my career. So for those of you who are wondering, what is Java? Many of you have probably heard of this very popular programming language. It is one of the most popular programming languages out there today. It's been in wide use for decades. It's used throughout industry in a wide variety of applications. I would say that it is mostly used for backend development, but you can pair it with something like JavaScript to create a really great user experience, front-end visual elements for your application. It's what we call an object-oriented programming language. So for those of you who are not familiar with what that means, an object-oriented programming language breaks down a computer program into the concept of different objects. For example, if we were making let's say we're making a car computer program, we would have an object that represents the whole car. And then within a car, you can imagine it's broken down into different subcomponents of that car, say wheels, maybe a steering wheel, seats, seat belts, an engine. And so if we kind of, when we're writing the code, break those up into different separate objects, we can define how they work and then also define how they kind of come together to make this full car. Again, that's a very high level kind of explanation, but as opposed to other programming languages, it's pretty distinct in how you're breaking up the code that you're writing, and you're thinking of things in different concepts. So I got started with Java in college. That was actually the first programming language that I learned. I started coding in college, and that was kind of the one that everyone was taught. So I didn't really have that much of a choice, but I'm actually really grateful that they had us all learn Java, because I quickly discovered how valuable it is. Again, it is used so widely in industry. It continues to grow and develop. And I think that's really important for programming languages. If you see that people are continuing to use the language, that it's being supported by companies, that you can go online and Google and see so many different resources and get help for any questions that you might have. It really supports your success as a developer, and it supports your company's success too in building products using that programming language. So throughout my time as an engineer, there's been lots of Java jobs available. It's not going away anytime soon. Again, we're seeing lots of support for the language, and it has a very robust community supporting it as well. So again, I mentioned that I started coding in Java in college. That was really the beginning of my computer science career, my career in programming. I started out kind of as just a kid who liked math. I didn't know anything about coding. I didn't have a lot of access to coding growing up, but I started in college, and my first experience in industry was, as I mentioned, an internship at Zillow. And that really sparked an interest in startups and small companies. I had a lot of fun working there, and it was really exciting to be able to go to work and collaborate with a smaller group of people. I think there were about 70 people in the company at the time. And I could interact with everyone from, my fellow interns all the way up to the CEO and the leadership. They were very accessible, and I really appreciated getting to know them and being able to interact with them. So after my internship, I was offered a full-time position there that was supposed to start when I graduated. Unfortunately, I graduated in the fall of 2008. And so I was supposed to start then, but that coincided with the housing crisis. And I actually ended up getting laid off before I could even start. That was, my position was eliminated along with, unfortunately, a quarter of the company at that time. Now we all know Zillow's bounced back and they are doing great. So I'm really happy that they had, were able to recover and find success. But at the time it was really scary. I was fresh out of college and had no job. But the first really big lesson that I learned was that it's so important to be able to lean on the support of your community and to have really great mentors. And thanks to some wonderful people in the community, a few people at Zillow who reached out and helped me find a new role, all the way to like fellow students, fellow graduates, other people in the startup community. I was able to land on my feet after a little bit of a scramble in a job search, and work for a different startup for my first full-time job after graduation. And there I learned a lot of great things. I learned about the different stages of the development cycle, everything from designing software to implementing and coding, what the test process looks like, what the launch process looks like. And I also learned some great lessons about business requirements and how to work under an agile Scrum schedule. And the impact of that was really cool to see. I was working at the time for a startup that was doing software for mobile companies like T-Mobile and Verizon. And our products ended up being used by millions of customers of those two carriers. So that was really exciting to have this pretty big impact coming from a small company fresh out of college. So fast forward to today, currently my career is split between the contract work that I'm doing for the government and my role as an instructor at Austin Coding Academy. So through my teaching, I have been really excited to engage with my technical skills in a totally new way and to share my knowledge. It's been a huge area of personal growth for me, and it's really helped me grow my communication skills to be able to talk about very detailed technical topics in a way that you know, people from all different backgrounds can understand, and to be able to facilitate a conversation about those topics. And I have noticed as I've continued in my career that communication has become an increasingly important part of my role. So since I work as a contractor for the government, there's a lot of communication required between the different stakeholders in the project. So there's people at the government agency, there are people at my company that are developing the software and deploying it, and a whole strata of different contractors and vendors in between. So lots of different people that need to be filled in and kept abreast on what's going on with the project. Another thing I've noticed is that earlier in my career, I worked on teams of 4 to 6 developers with kind of a team lead directing the project. Currently, my role is more independent. So I'm the technical expert on my team, and it requires me to take on more leadership and initiative to drive the project forward. As I think back through my career, I've had a lot of really fun projects that I've been involved with, but one of my favorites has been a project called Power Clerk. This was developed by my former employer, Clean Power Research. And Power Clerk is a business software tool for the solar industry. And so our customers were utility companies around the country who were having their customers start to put solar panels on their homes and businesses and wanted to plug those into the utility. So we kind of helped them determine what's the impact of having all these solar panels come online. So it was really exciting to see the impact kind of in real time. We could see how much money customers were saving by installing solar panels. We could actually see their utility bills change. And also to be able to measure that in watts, how much renewable energy was truly starting to have an impact in communities around the country. And that really sparked in me an interest in renewable energy and the environment that continues with me to this day. So if you are someone that wants to specialize in Java, or let's say you're interested in, getting started and figuring out what it's all about, there are a lot of great resources, everything from books, lots of YouTube online tutorials, and it's really well documented. Just because it's been around for so long, there is so much Java documentation out there. Java applications are usually huge. There's usually a lot of code involved. So rather than starting from scratch, I would suggest maybe find a project you can contribute to. Maybe it's an open source project. It's really easy to get your feet wet by learning by example and fixing bugs, adding small features, than kind of starting something of your own from scratch. And it's a lot less overwhelming. I personally like to start new projects by just saying, hey, do you have some bugs that I can fix? Like, let me just take a look at how this is all working together and see what's going on before I try to kind of add a huge new feature on my own. I like to take little bites and chew those off and see what they taste like before I really maybe try to bake a whole pie. And then, of course, as you pick up Java and you want to learn more, you want to grow in your Java skills. Same as before, like find a variety of projects to work on. You are only going to learn more and better as you kind of experience different situations and see different features of the language. And I would also suggest for Java developers, learn JavaScript, learn another front-end language. It's always helpful to know kind of how things work on the user side of things, especially if you've been doing a lot of kind of more database layer or backend development. And also, if you pair Java with something like JavaScript, that can open up a lot of roles for you. You could start applying for some of those, what we call full stack developer roles that focus on both the front end and the back end. So that's all I've got for today, but I wanted to thank you all for attending again, and thank you to Girls in Tech. Thank you to Breaking the Glass for having me.
Yeah, of course. We're so happy that you were able to join us. As people, get a little fired up, decide like what they want to type into the Q&A box, I do have a couple questions for you. I was wondering, when you said you were in the job search, you were looking for a lot of mentors and things like that. And I am someone who, whenever I hear like your mentor relationship has to have like a lot of purpose and be very defined, but that can feel really complicated when you're actively looking for a job and you're like, I don't know, man, just help me find a job. How did you go about those mentor relationships when you weren't employed, and like to help figure out the questions you needed to ask and really like set yourself up so like both people were able to walk away like from that mentor communication feeling successful?
Yeah, that's a wonderful question. Thank you so much for asking that. So in that case, when I got suddenly laid off and needed to scramble to search for a job, there was one relationship in particular that kind of just sprang up ad hoc. And honestly, it was kind of more of a guardian angel relationship. So one of the recruiters at Zillow, she kind of took it upon herself because she felt so bad that they had to lay me off before I started, that she said, Dana, I'm going to help you find a job. Like, please lean on me for connections, which she had many of being a recruiter, and just for kind of general advice about companies. And so she really kind of pointed me the way. She got me started with this big list of contacts. And so I think what I took away from that is, sometimes we think of mentors as like somebody who is kind of helping you with so many different aspects of your career. Mm-hmm. And I've had those type of mentors, and those mentors are wonderful. But a mentor could also be somebody who maybe helps you find a job, or maybe is helping you learn Java, or, with one small thing, and yet they are still just as much of a mentor as somebody who is maybe taking a more holistic look at your career. So I would definitely call, her name's Lila, I would call Lila someone who was a mentor to me at that very difficult and stressful time. And she really made a huge difference in my experience.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that she offered up her, network list as well. I feel like I do that a lot of times on my networking calls where someone is, saying like, oh, I want to go into this field. I'm like, you know what? I don't have all the answers, but I know a lot of really smart people as well. Do you want to just scroll through my LinkedIn and see who we can also try to, get you in touch with as well? So, never be afraid to ask for an intro as well. And then, next I'd love to get into, what have you enjoyed about the benefits of doing contract work? With the government, was there something that was like particularly attractive about contract work? And, being able to like do the government work and also teach at the same time. Can you talk about like maybe it's flexible, maybe it's stressful?
Yeah, it is. The flexibility is huge. So I started teaching first. I had actually quit my full-time job as a software engineer to move here to Austin. And that's where I started teaching. And then this contract role came along and I thought they would kind of complement each other well. The project is really interesting. We're working with some agencies that do things related to disaster relief. So that's been really impactful, and I felt like that's been very fulfilling to work on. And I also like that it was a remote project. So I started in this role about a year ago. And so this was right before we all went into quarantine and lockdown. And it started out as a remote role. And that is something I had been very curious about trying out for a while. And so it's been an adjustment going from in-person. I was very much an in-person, wanted to be in the office all the time, talking to people face to face. So it was an adjustment for me, but I've really appreciated the flexibility. I can still teach when I want, and to be able to set my own schedule and to work from different locations has been very nice as well.
Yeah, absolutely. You get your time back from the commute. You get to, pair different skills together and, continue to learn. I feel like so many times we can get very siloed brain into like what one organization does. So being able to, work part-time a couple places, you really are able to get like insight other places and really, use that community to support each area of your life that you're going to be in. Yeah, we're still waiting for questions. I have a bunch of questions. Attendees, we'd love to hear from you. I'm going to keep going until y'all type something in. And then, you also talked about like how important it was to be able to like communicate to all the different like stakeholders in your jobs as well. Was there ever an incident where it was definitely like a learning curve to like learn everyone's communication styles? What have you done to like pretty much like set yourself up so that what's the best way to like navigate all these different relationships?
Totally. Yeah, it's been tricky sometimes. We've had to rely a lot more on written communication, I think, since all of us have been working remotely more. So I think it's, for me, I think it's kind of knowing when is a good time to kind of pick up the phone and have a quick call rather than type an email. And I've gotten it wrong. Like we've all gotten it wrong at one time or another. But really, I think I was already somebody who kind of leaned towards written communication. So I think in that regard, it wasn't as difficult for me, but I feel like maybe for others who are a little bit more used to verbal communication or meeting face to face, there can be a little bit more of an adjustment. So I think for me, it's mostly mindfulness and really trying to assess the situation and just intuitively pick up if somebody might be having trouble understanding something or getting something across, or I'm having trouble understanding something or getting something across. How can we try different ways and kind of troubleshoot and make sure that we're all hearing each other and getting on the same page?
Fantastic. Yeah. Okay. We did have a couple questions come through the chat. First is from an anonymous attendee. Do you have any tips on being a good mentee? I struggle with feeling guilty or asking too much of someone's time. Anonymous person, I feel you on that one.
Oh, me too. That is a really great question. Thank you. Thank you for asking that. I think, so it's hard. I struggle with imposter syndrome. I struggle with feeling guilty sometimes, actually quite a lot. So that's something that I just need to be mindful of, kind of that's going on sometimes just in the background in me. I think it makes me feel more at ease if I have specific things that I'm asking about. So like, for example, when Lila was offering to help me with my career search, if I, was talking to her, I would say, oh, I need to talk to like some more recruiters. Do you have any suggestions of people I could talk to? And that for her, it gave her something really specific rather than me going like, I don't know what to do, help, I have no job. Instead, if I said, oh, I need to talk to some recruiters, or like, oh, I'm having trouble maybe getting kind of to the next step of the interview process. So come with specific questions. And I think that can really help focus your conversations and your interactions with your mentor. And it'll also help them help you better too, because then they have a much clearer idea of what you might be looking for and needing help with. And then in that conversation, you might be able to uncover some other things, specific things as well. They might help you figure some other things out that maybe you just hadn't been able to figure out on your own, which is one of those great things about mentorship as well.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, we're going to do one more question before we kick it over to Brandi. But if your question did not get selected right now, we will revisit it at the end when we open the floor back up to both of our speakers. But right now, we're just going to tack Julia's for the next couple of minutes. What is your best advice for a person who is changing careers and will soon be looking for a front-end software engineering job after completing a full stack bootcamp?
Yeah, that's also a great question. Thank you. Thank you for asking that. It is a really exciting time to find a career in software engineering. And I have been so inspired, especially as a teacher at Austin Coding Academy, seeing students come from all different career backgrounds and find success as engineers and really, make this part of their life. So I will say this might sound kind of controversial, but I do not think that you need a college degree in computer science to be a programmer. I firmly believe that 100%. I have a degree in it, but that is only one path to success. There are many different paths in this industry to find success as a software engineer. Yeah. So if you are looking to change careers, of course, write lots of code, do practice, do projects. If you're doing a boot camp, you will probably come out with many projects, which is great. Learn how to communicate about those projects. So again, communication is very important. Communication about technical topics, especially. So tell the story of your projects. Practice for interviews, and we can talk a little bit more. I know this is a big thing, so we can talk a little bit more about this later. Practice for interviews. Find someone to practice with. Also important. And then really lean into your story and your background and the strengths that you bring from your past roles, even if they aren't technical roles. You would be surprised how many wonderful skills that come from other careers really can apply in a computer science job, software engineering job. So lean into your past and bring those skills forward with you.
Lovely. I absolutely love all those answers. Well, yeah, we're going to give Dana a quick little break. We're going to pass it over to Brandi, but yeah, lots of great questions coming in and they will all get addressed at some point in the presentation. Yeah, anyway, I'm going to mic down. Brandi, if you have any issues sharing your presentation, just, let me know.
Definitely will do. Thank you. And let's see, let me try to get my screen shared. This one? All right, so can y'all see it? I hope you can.
Yeah, it looks fantastic.
Yay, awesome. So I'm going to talk about my job, which is data engineer, but my actual technical title is software engineer, which is cool. But I just focus specifically on data. Let's see. There we go. So first I'm going to tell you a little bit about how I got here. I didn't take that usual path of going to college and getting my degree and getting a cool job. That's exactly what I always wanted. I actually went to college in 2001, a long time ago, and it was just a community college, and I got my certificate in drafting, which I wanted to be an architect. I thought that was going to be awesome. I began my career as a drafter, and I worked for about 10 years until I realized, this was about 2011, that my career was kind of at a plateau. I wasn't going anywhere. I was a manager. I was stressed out. I was working 60 hours a week, and I couldn't see this getting better anytime soon. It was just, I was in a bad place. I was pretty depressed. So I just said, screw it all, joining the Army. I joined the Army, which probably wasn't the best decision. I went down pretty hard. It was a difficult experience. It was physically difficult. So in 2016, after I got out, I joined college because I needed to figure out what else I need to do with my life. What can I do to make it better? So I went to college to become an archaeologist because that had been my dream since I was a child. I always wanted to do archaeology, and it was cool. While I was in college, I did get to go on a couple of digs and explore the ancient past. But I realized that wasn't actually what I wanted to do when I got a chance to really get in there and meet people and go to conferences, and that it wasn't my thing. But while I was doing archaeology, I was doing research. That was my main focus, was doing a lot of statistical research and doing a lot of examination of artifacts and how those related to people's actions and examining the change over time. And so as part of my degree, I got a statistics minor, and that ended up being the most fun that I had while I was in college. I was able to go a couple math conferences in my very last semester, and I got to learn how to code in R, which is pretty difficult. I taught myself basically how to code in R. And I saw the power of how awesome that was. Like the things that you can do when you know how to code, it feels like magic. You're just making these beautiful things. Like I went from working on Excel and trying to make these spreadsheets and graphs out of spreadsheets that were just really clunky to working in R and making these gorgeous graphs that just had beautiful colors and beautiful labels. And I was able to put those into my presentations and impress people with that. And I was like, this is really fun. This is really cool. In my very last, I graduated in 2019, and right after I graduated, I went to a conference in Dallas where I got to speak with a few people who are actually working in the statistical industry, who were going to school for a graduate school for statistics. And I thought about going to grad school. I thought about moving on and getting a career in statistics. But one of my classmates basically that went to the conference with me told me about a coding bootcamp. And we got started talking about, and we were like, what we really liked doing was coding. We really liked doing these projects. We didn't really want to go get the degree. We wanted to do the work. We wanted to do the fun stuff. So instead of going to grad school, I decided to learn to code, and I joined a coding bootcamp. And I was like, just dive in. This is what I really want. And if that doesn't work out, that's fine. Grad school is always open to me if I need it, but let's try this. So yeah, I did the coding bootcamp. I did it here in San Antonio, and it took about, I want to say it was about 5 months. I went from February to July, and it was epic. I had so much fun just like diving in and figuring it out and learning all these different languages. Like we learned SQL, we learned Python, we learned some Spark, we got to play with Tableau, we got to play with other stuff. It was just so cool to pull all of that together and create amazing reports, amazing analysis, and tell these really cool stories that I couldn't have told with Excel or with Word and PowerPoint like I'm used to. So right after I graduated, I got hired as a data engineer just last September. So I'm a baby data engineer still. And that has been awesome. This learning experience since I've been hired has been so cool. Like I've dived in and learned a whole bunch of different languages and gotten really flexible with switching between what I'm doing and learning different things. So let me get into a little bit more about what is data engineering, because a lot of people haven't actually heard of that. So in my job description, it says that I develop a deep understanding of data, and I'm a domain expert, and that I'm ensuring that data is distributed timely and correct manner. And I have to make data discoverable and accessible to the business users. So really what I'm doing is I'm ensuring that the data is in a place, it's good to go, it's in a good quality, and that the analysts can dip in and grab the data that they need and pull out the reports that impress the stakeholders, so the business people, the main people, and the corporate. But I would also add that in addition to that, you have to be really comfortable with a lot of different languages. You can't just focus on Python, or you can't just focus on SQL. You have to understand a lot of them, because I work on a team where every person has their own favorite language, and you have to be good at reading their stuff. You have to decipher other people's code, and you have to figure out what's important, what are they asking for. And you also have to translate. So like we've got a bunch of code that was written by somebody else a long time ago. It's written in one language. We'll take that and we'll update it and put it in another language. It's a bit more performant, that works better, is more streamlined, it's more accurate, has everything working together better. So yeah, you have to be flexible. And I'll tell you, like working from home, this is my desk. This is awesome. I get to have one main, I code right here in front of me on my computer, but I've also got some monitors next to me that I'm always checking, and I'm chatting with my team, and I'm checking my calendar, make sure I've got enough time. And there's a lot going on. And I also have a bunch of different projects happening at the same time. So what kind of things do I do? First of all, the biggest job that I have is I'm investigating why there are problems in the data. Somebody in the analysis team will come to us and say, hey, we noticed there's a problem, and they'll give us a little bit of the code that they wrote. And I have to take that code and be like, all right, is this actually a problem? Or did they maybe miswrite their code, or maybe not understand how things are working? And then I have to quantify that issue, like how many records is this problem affecting? How big of a problem is this? And how important is it that we need to fix it? And trace it back to its root cause. Like we have a whole bunch of tables. So each table is tied to other tables, and thousands, literal thousands of tables that we're working with. And they're all related to each other somehow, some way. And we have to trace back issues as it flows through all of those tables and figure out, where did this issue start and where do we need to address this problem? And then I have to actually fix it. So go back into that code that somebody else wrote that I don't know anything much about. And some of this code is gloriously abstract, and it takes a lot of effort to try to figure out what happened, what are they trying to do, and how can I put my piece of code in there so that it works well with it and doesn't break everything and still fixes the problem. And then I have to communicate that issue with both my team, let them know what's going on, let my manager know what's happening, because he also has he knows everything about our systems and how they work. And so he needs to give me good advice and tell me how I need to actually make this work. And then I also have to let the data analyst know and be like, hey, I think I fixed the problem. Can you check? Can you make sure? Did I do a good job? Did I mess it up somehow else? Like we have to go on a little bit of back and forth. Sometimes I think I fixed the problem and I didn't. Sometimes the problem is actually bigger than they told us at the beginning, and there's a few more things. So it's a lot of back and forth. So yeah, that's the biggest thing, is just big problems. Things pop up and you take care of it and you deal with it. But also we've got the day-to-day stuff of we're migrating our data from one system, which is kind of older, it's an expensive system, into a brand new system. So we're rewriting all of that code and putting it in another place. And we're making sure everything works good and making sure that the data is the same when you move it from here to there. We also have to check to make sure that our results are the same. So if we run a query in this system, is it going to give us the same results when we run it in this system? And we check the quality, make sure the standards are met. And then we have a whole bunch of meetings because we are at the source of data for the whole company. Everybody uses what we produce. So we have to constantly be interacting with other teams and making sure that we know what they're working with, we know what they need out of our data, and make sure that we're giving them what we need. Let's see. What has been my favorite project? So when I first started, I was given the task of simply comparing the output from one system with the output from another system. And I was like, that's tedious. So I wrote a tool that did it for me. I basically programmed a whole script to run that produced a report at the very end. And that report basically quantified the similarities between the two tables, all of the nulls that there are, make sure that there's a similar amount of nulls in those tables. Sometimes you want the nulls there, sometimes they pop in, and check the differences between the tables. And sometimes they are significantly different, and that's okay. And sometimes they're significantly different, and that's a problem. So you have to kind of understand when that is happening. So to do that, you need to dig into those tables. And so I made a lot of functions that would run for me so that I could basically do those deep dives and dive into it really simply with just a few queries. I used Spark SQL. And so I'm not sure if you're familiar with SQL. SQL is a structured query language that basically lets you interact with these relational databases. If you think of Excel, you've got one spreadsheet with all of the data on it, and a relational database is multiple tables like that all relate to each other somehow. And when you're using SQL, you can combine those tables together, or you can pick them apart. You can take pieces from here and pieces from there and put it together. So basically you can manipulate a whole bunch of nebulous data in a way that makes sense. And I also use Spark SQL because we have so much data that it's distributed over many servers, and Spark lets me put that data together in a nice data frame, basically nice laid out square spreadsheet type thing, so that I can look at the actual data that I'm working with in a nice clean way that I can understand it, because it doesn't quite exist like that in our systems. Our systems kind of has things weird, like nebulous, like I had said. Let's see, it also lets you use other systems. So you start with SQL, but then it allows you to integrate other like machine learning things, or you can integrate other systems into it. That makes it a really powerful processing tool. Gave you some links on there. If you're interested, you can check it out. There's the website. This is that report that I made. That was really cool. So basically I run this line at the very top. Let's see with my mouse, this line right here. I don't even have to type anything in. I just say enter. And this report comes out. It gives me the actual data that's going in. It tells me all of the problems that there are, and it tells me all of the number of records that you have. And you can see we have a lot of records. Like this is where tables match. We had 38 million records, and this is just one of the tables that I had to compare. So when you think about it, you're dealing with 38 million records. You have to get really good at abstracting and looking at this thing as a whole and trying to figure out where these issues are and what's a problem and what's not. So yeah, that's kind of the end of my presentation. If you have questions, I can answer them. Let me see, I'll just stop my sharing. Man, that was quick, 5 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, I guess kicking off, first of all, like we said, a lot of the questions that came through, earlier were a little bit more open-ended, more career. If you do have specific questions about the tech that Brandi was talking about, type that in right ahead. But, you said it kind of went quick. Anything else that you felt like you wanted to share that you just kind of blew through?
I did blow through one thing. If you want to teach it to yourself, because SQL is not exactly the relatable thing. It's not something you can just install on your machine and get to work with. I used HackerRank when I was trying to study and practice on my own, because they have data stored in there and they have questions that they want you to figure out. And then if you go to the the comment boards, I guess, or the discussion boards, you can actually see how other people have solved this problem and get some really good ideas on how to, because there's so many ways to solve it. Like none of them is actually better than the others. Find a style that fits for you and get really good at working with the data the way you like it, the way it makes sense to you. And that was really helpful for me.
Yeah, that's great. I'm so glad you brought up HackerRank. I know I didn't talk about this earlier in the introduction, but for those of you who aren't familiar with Breaking the Glass, we are sponsored by a contract technical recruitment company. And so we're placing a lot of folks in Java, JavaScript, SQL, Python roles. And we're also hiring. So if you're looking to build out your team, let me know. There's the advertisements. But a lot of my recruiters talk about like, oh yeah, we're doing a HackerRank interview. So get familiar with the platform, start testing it, because those types of tests are going to show up in some interviews that you do as well. So I'm so glad that you brought that up. And so from Tina, I have, hi, Brandi, thank you, and very interesting story. What is your best practices on splitting your time between all those activities you mentioned, dealing with as coding, meetings, leading teams, root causing, writing code, etc.? Like, how do you become a manager and a technologist and do everything?
The good thing is my manager is really good about giving me the time that I need to work on something. So if I do start getting overwhelmed, I can be like, hey, I need some time. I need to make some time for this, and he will help me clear my schedule. But the other thing is also, like, I try to keep at least my afternoons free if I can. And you have to get really good at telling people, like, I don't have time. I can't handle this right now, or I can't make this meeting that's going to happen. It'd be nice, but I won't be able to be there. And thankfully, since I've started, I've been able to keep my basically between 9 to 5. My work starts. I just don't usually get lunch. I just blow right through that. But yeah, you have to be flexible and communicative. Speak up if it's becoming too much, because people want you to succeed. They're going to help you. And if you're getting overwhelmed, they'll step in and help you.
Yeah, that's great. Ask for advice. And the good thing is we're all pretty much working from home. So it's easier to sneak out to get lunch during non-lunch hours as well when you need to make that happen.
True.
So yeah, thank you, Tina. And then Tamara, there are a lot of data analytics boot camps and certificate programs out there. What should I be looking at to choose the right one?
It doesn't matter so much the program that you did as much as, do you enjoy it and do you feel comfortable with it, and is that something that you want to do? Because like I took the certificate program for drafting, and it was nice and it was enjoyable, but the work environment was so toxic that I couldn't stand it. And so I wouldn't have known that if I hadn't gotten into that career on my own. But basically, if you can find somebody in that career that you're thinking of and talk to them and see how their day is and see how they enjoy it, and if you like it. Conferences are really good for doing that because you can talk to people actually in the industry.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, look for like all day or half day conferences. A lot of people are having free conferences now. I'm sure Girls in Tech has plenty of other programming, but yeah, all those networking groups, reach out because they're all trying to get connected and make sure that their members are feeling valued and loved and provide as much information as possible. Let's see. All right, we got an SQL question. What is the rule of thumb for creating, I gotta speak slower, for creating database in SQL? Relationships can be done anyway, technically, but how to not overload the database with them. Oh, wait, there's a follow-up. What I mean is how to make sure database is done in a way that makes sense to other people as well as you. Is there a basic rule of thumb?
There's a style more than there's a rule of thumb. And if you follow that style, then you kind of have an idea. And I can't remember the name. We have a specific style where I work where each table has one purpose. And if you have any reason where you're duplicating records, then that duplicated record needs to be pulled into another table to hold those duplicated records. So you only have one record per entry that you have. So I cannot remember that name. There's a style for that. There was basically each table holds one piece of information, and then you tie it together to another table that holds another piece of information that relates to that. And you keep that simple. So it's basically just one layer at a time. And you can have millions of tables if that's what you need to do, because SQL can handle that. It's just you have to learn how to tie the information together effectively.
Well, Julia, I did drop Brady's LinkedIn, so add her on LinkedIn and remind her to tell you what the name of that tool is as well. All right, well, we're gonna bring Dana back in. It seems like although their questions are pretty, a little bit more broad as well. Welcome back. So yeah, I'm gonna jump in right with another question from Tina. A question for both of you. How long did it take you to learn to code through a boot camp education?
Well, for my boot camp, I kind of already knew R, so I was applying that to what I was taught. But to learn, basically to learn how the whole thing works, it took a couple of weeks, and then it took a couple of months to actually apply it and get comfortable with it and learn how the things worked. It didn't take very long though.
And I would say in Austin Coding Academy, which is where I teach, we have 8 to 9 month programs. And so that's broken up into kind of 3 different classes that you would take. The great thing that I love about Austin Coding Academy is that you can split it up. So if most people do, 1, 2, 3 classes one after the other, but if for some reason you need to take a break, you can do the first one and then, catch the second and third one the next time they come around. And I think the other boot camps I've heard about, it's something similar, but you can find others that are maybe a little more compressed, where they put all the curriculum into 3 months or a shorter period of time. So it really depends on, what kind of schedule you want to have. At Austin Coding Academy, most of our students are working full-time jobs or part-time jobs outside of the boot camp. So we want to make sure that it's accessible for them in that way.
Perfect. Yeah, thanks so much. So I'm going to go back to, kind of where we left off in the middle of the section. I know we've talked a lot about, do you need a computer science degree to be successful? Are the coding boot camps worth it? I feel like it's a maybe on a degree, but we're pretty pro boot camp in this group.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. Getting a computer science degree is great, and that will give you, that's one way of getting the skills, but you can also be self-taught. Or you can get your skills through a boot camp. I have had managers who did not have degrees in computer science. I had a manager whose degree was in physics before, and people from other various backgrounds. So, you can people find their way to programming through all different, paths. So boot camps can definitely be a good path.
Yep, I definitely second that. I think it is easier to find a job if you have a degree, but it doesn't have to be computer science degree. It's just like my degree was in statistics and multidisciplinary studies. Like, it wasn't specifically tailored to that. They just want to see that you graduated.
Great. And then next question, what advice do you have for someone who does have a technical background but is looking to switch careers?
I want to say be passionate about it. Like, make it the thing that you would enjoy working on your own, and having something awesome to talk about when you're being interviewed. Like, why did you choose this career? If you really love it, it's going to come out, it's going to show, and you're going to do a really cool project that you're excited to talk about and you're excited to share. And that gives them a way to critique you and how you do your, whatever it is you're coding. And it really gives you something to talk about. But if you're not passionate about it and you haven't really put that time into your project or whatever it is that you're working on, you just know how to code, then it doesn't give them very much to see how you are a good fit for their company, or if you're good with working with that team. So yeah, just be really passionate about something.
I would totally agree, and be able to tell that story, you know, like
Yeah.
Brandi, I really loved what you said about being able to talk with excitement and, you know, enthusiasm about a project that you've worked on, to be able to explain how it works and to answer questions about it, to especially to talk about, like, if you had infinite time, how would you add on to it? You know, I've taught classes on, you know, helping people get ready to make that career leap, and a lot of it is actually storytelling, like having a conversation and telling a story. Like, even if you're doing those dreaded whiteboard interviews, it's all about having a conversation about code and, like, what is the story you're trying to tell? So I find it, if it's something that you're moving to from kind of a different technical role, really tell your story. And then I guess kind of a side thing also is maybe find somebody who works in that role, so you can also get a sense of, you know, what their day-to-day is like, and what sorts of challenges and things they might encounter that might be different from the background that you have.
Perfect. Thank you. So we have two questions that I feel like can just kind of pair really nicely together. So they're both from Anonymous. How would you recommend a person get started learning to code? Someone who is novice and looking to try coding to see if they like it. And then the other question, which I feel like it's a nice little tack on, is where can someone practice code if they've never done it?
I tried to teach myself to code, and it didn't go so well because I really need to be, I need a purpose when I'm coding. So when I had my project that I was working on in college, I did teach myself R, but I felt like I didn't know what I was doing, and I felt like I was just kind of copying code from somebody else and pasting it in. But when I was in CodeUp, when I was the bootcamp that I went to, that was the best way of learning to code, because it was somebody gives you a task to do and you develop the code to do it, and they give you critiques, and it was great and it worked really well. But teaching myself really didn't work so well because I'm not very driven like that. And like I said, practice with HackerRank, that was my practice.
Yeah, I think those are both great pointers. I am also someone who is more of a collaborative learner, and I just find that I learn better and I have more fun when other people are there learning along with me. I would suggest finding the coding schools, boot camps in your area. A lot of them will offer a free introductory class. It'll usually just be 1 to 2 hours over the course of an evening. So kind of shameless plug, at Austin Coding Academy, we have them. So you can go to our website and they have free classes every once in a while. But really, there's so many other coding schools and boot camps all across the country. And now that we're all remote, you can really join one from anywhere. So find a coding school that sounds interesting to you and that kind of fits what you might be looking for, or offers a certain language that you might be interested in, and see if you can get a free like taster class. And that's a good way to try it out. And then again, like websites like HackerRank, if you already have some coding under your belt and you want to practice those challenges, coding challenges, there are tons of websites like HackerRank that can help with that.
Well, yeah, we are right at time, guys. So if you had a question that didn't get answered, I've taken a note of it. So we tried to get all the anonymous ones in. So I'll send your question over to the panelists because we do have your emails, and I'll get you looped in and connected with them. I've just sent through some resources so you can follow Breaking the Glass on LinkedIn, Girls in Tech on LinkedIn, and you can get connected with myself as well. But yeah, again, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. We did record the session, so we will be able to send that out for anyone who wasn't able to make it, or if you'll just want to watch this on a loop a bunch of times as well. And so, yeah, thank you all for having a great day. And Alana, I don't know if you want to turn your camera or your mic on real quick. I'd love to just grab a quick little screenshot so we can share about our experience on LinkedIn.
Absolutely. I actually tried earlier. It says you cannot start your video. The host is stopped it. So I would definitely love to.
I just made you a co-host.
Okay, perfect.
Mm-hmm.
All right, perfect. Great. Well, thank you both so much. I really appreciate the time today, and I know that women in tech and girls in tech really got a lot from this amazing Q&A. So thank you again, and thank you, Elizabeth, of course, for organizing it.
Yeah, of course. All right. One second. I'm going to get our camera, quote unquote, ready. All right. 1, 2, 3. Great. We'll get our lovely photo up on. Did it disappear? All right. Yeah, we're going to have to do that again. Yeah. Sorry, everyone who's hanging out. All right. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Perfect. All right. Thanks again. And y'all have a wonderful rest of your day. Okay.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.